Alright everyone, as most of you probably know, the legacy media is in the bag for Beijing Biden. For instance, link in the description there to a YouTube video. Giuliani was talking, of course, to the legislative session in Pennsylvania with regards to some of the allegations of fraud, voting irregularities, voting machine glitches, and so forth. And elicited a gasp from the crowd, which is part of the title of the article there, because he's claiming, and this appears to be true, that in the final spike of mail-in votes there, you had 600,000 votes for Joe Biden and about 3,000 for Donald Trump. Now, if you add a couple of zeros to that latter number, it begins to make sense. A 2-to-1 ratio for Biden isn't that far beyond the pale. In fact, it's quite reasonable, based on what we've seen in other states where we know that the results don't appear to be fishy. This includes states that went for both Biden and for Trump, and they simply calculated their mail-in votes on the night of the election or shortly thereafter, as opposed to the states that are still kind of counting things now. There's several recounts ongoing. You got fucking 1,000 pieces of litigation, affidavits up the ass. In all those states, the differential is different. But that particular differential, again, if you move the comma and add a couple of zeros, it begins to make sense. I'm beginning to think that there might have been a clerical error involved in this. Clerical error, glitch in the voting machine. Yeah, I think that Trump won Pennsylvania fairly handily. Just saying, I think that regardless of fraud, something fishy went on, because this doesn't make sense. It's a statistical anomaly that boggles the mind and begs the question, is it more likely that this is true and that Pennsylvania completely bucked the trend in literally the rest of the country by an order or two of magnitude? Or is it more sensible to say that a computer accidentally deleted a couple of zeros? I think the latter is a little bit more sane. That being said, the legacy media won't even talk about it. They didn't even cover this legislative session, despite the fact that it's part and parcel of ongoing significant litigation by a presidential administration over the possibility that the election was fraudulent. Now, in 2016, with no evidence whatsoever and simply a mere claim that Russia bucked the election, we started a multi-million-dollar, multi-year investigation, and there were mass protests, and it was all the MSM talked about for weeks and weeks on end, and reverted to over the course of the subsequent 4 fucking years. And the legacy media would always insinuate that it was basically Trump was a Putin asset. He has Russian hookers piss on the Obama's bed and weird shit like that. And he never got a fair coverage from the legacy media about anything he did. For instance, did you even know about all the peace deals that have been signed over the last year? It wasn't just the first one. Sudan quickly joined that group. I think there were 4 or 5 different countries that signed peace agreements recognizing the state of Israel that hadn't before. Did you know about Trump's successful push to decriminalize homosexuality in multiple third world nations where it was still punishable by death just to be gay? Now, I know some of you that wear MAGA hats not only don't like that, but are opposed to it. But you'd think that people on the left, if they knew that it had gone on, they would have to nod politely and say, oh, well, I guess Trump did something good after all, because they think that he's a homophobe or something. Did you know Donald Trump is the first president since Jimmy Carter, way back in the 1970s, before most of us were fucking born? Based on my channel demographics, most of you were born under Reagan. A lot of you were born under Herbert Walker or even under Bill Clinton. Some of you probably under George W. I feel very sorry for you for your particular era. Did you know that he's the first president since Jimmy Carter? Arguably the most left-wing modern liberal figure that's been in the presidency. Have to go back to FDR to find someone more left-leaning than that, and that's not exactly modern politics. Coming up on centennial era, to not start a new war and not to expand a current war or conflict is the only one since Jimmy Carter. Reagan did. Reagan invaded several countries, although it was fairly quick. Herbert Walker, invasion of Iraq. He failed, but he did. Clinton, involved in Yugoslavia. George W., Iraq, Afghanistan, half a dozen other places that we probably haven't heard of. Barack Obama, lots and lots of movement in Pakistan, of all places. Troop surge in Afghanistan, mass expansion there. Mass expansion of our drone and naval maneuvers off Somalia, which Trump is also optioning withdrawing on. I'm less enthusiastic about that because piracy is a little bit different from a war. And when we're asked, all the legitimate governments in the region want us to help with the pirates, so why not? They're pirates. And they're not the cool pirates with eye patches and shit and flying the Jolly Roger. They've got like armored speedboats and machine guns. So it's not as romantic as, you know, Pirates of the Caribbean or something like that. It's not exactly Treasure Island anymore. I long for the return of that sort of thing. But the legacy media wouldn't report on any of these things. They don't know about any of these successes that the Trump administration had. When's the last time that they acknowledged the fact that Trump's, what was it, in the first 6 months he was in office, passed comprehensive VA reform, the Veterans Administration, which for decades was seen as corrupt, inept, stupid. Like veterans would go in and basically never come out. If they got legionnaires, they were lucky. He solved this problem. You never heard anything about it again. The Republicans wouldn't talk about it. Hell, even Trump didn't bother to talk about it. He probably knew they wouldn't report on it because it's not exciting enough. All of these successes, most Americans don't even know they exist. A plurality of Americans, at least 50% of them, still believe that the Trump tax cuts benefited the rich. Well, no, they didn't. They objectively didn't. Most of the relief by ratio went to the middle and working class, especially people like me who are entrepreneurs and people who have a lot of kids, because it doubled the child tax credit. Billionaires don't tend to have as many kids. You have a family of like fucking 10 kids. They cleaned up. Now they can give their kids better nutrition. Their kids hopefully aren't malnourished. That was the Trump tax cuts. The Trump tax cuts giving me the FICA offset saved me thousands of dollars over the last fiscal year. The reduction of the getting rid of the ACA mandate, the most regressive thing Obama ever pledged himself to. The hated 2.5% tax on the specifically the lower classes that can't afford their health insurance. Attempting to inject competition in the system to lower premiums. Trump accomplished all these things. The wall. Hundreds of new miles of border wall as well as hundreds of miles retrofitted were built. It was a success. Qualified success because, of course, he was obstructed by his own Republican Senate for the first 2 years and then had to get around the Ninth Circuit. And the Ninth Circuit, another victory, at least if you're a right-winger. Then the Ninth Circuit is now a conservative court. Thousands of federal judges have been appointed. Slots left open deliberately by Obama for some inexplicable fucking reason towards the end of his presidency. Trump said, okay, we'll fill them. So now the whole court system has been overhauled. Trump accomplished all these things. He remade the SCOTUS over in his image. What more could you possibly want? But you didn't hear about most of this stuff unless you're watching me or like fucking Tim Pool or Goodman or Razorfist or something. You didn't hear it on CNN. You didn't even hear about it on Fox. Likewise, the legacy media being in the bag for Beijing Biden means that if Beijing Biden, the big fucking baby, is rigged in there, they're going to question him on things and do what they did with Obama. You remember that era. AP spying scandal. The federal government weaponized intel to spy on journalists. Yawn. Let's go back to see. Hey, look, he went on Ellen. How cute is that? Oh, Obama just bought a fluffy little dog for his daughters. Isn't that cute? Ignore Fast and Furious. No, the holder giving automatic weapons to Mexican cartels and one of those weapons getting used to kill a border agent. Nobody cares about that. Michael Hastings, do you even know who he is? Google it sometime. Tell me that the Obama administration wasn't corrupt on a structural level. Lois Lerner's IRS. You remember that one? Oh, the IRS was targeting conservative activist groups that were tax exempt. Oh, as well as progressive groups. That part of the story you didn't get from Glenn Beck, by the way, at the time. That was ignored by Fox deliberately. Groups that were outside of the neoliberal mainstream, if they weren't neocon, rhinocon Republican, like Bushite, or they weren't Obama-backing neolibs, if they were on the left or if they were populistic, they were targeted by the IRS for audits, which can be expensive to fight. They were targeted. It's almost treasonous. Nothing ever came of it. Partially because the legacy media talked about the story briefly, called it a conspiracy theory, and dropped the issue. They're going to do the same thing for Beijing Biden. If Beijing Biden decides to revive the TPP in a new form, which, trust me, he will at least try to do, so that billionaires over in China or in Hanoi or in Manila can come to the U.S. and force out local and regional chains as part of a trade deal that is hyper-capitalistic as long as you're a multinationalist, but very, very centralized if you're a small local business. You still have to pay massive taxes and deal with lawyers and shit. You'll do great under that. Biden will probably do that. He'll revive the TPP. By the way, the TPP, that's all it is. They say, well, it'll draw our countries closer together. It'll lead to better economic growth. Yes, for the 1%. It'll draw the billionaires closer together and allow multinational corporations to make a lot more money at the expense of local and regional businesses that benefit their communities more. That's the only fucking point of it. Because Biden pals around with these people. They want to shove out their local competitors so that you don't have Ma and Pa bookstore, it's Barnes and Nobles. You don't have Ma and Pa grocery, it's a Walmart attachment. That's what you'll have. Multinational corporations. It'll suck the life out of small town America. It's already going to suck the life out of Eastern Asia. You watch what happens to those local communities when their local businesses break down. Order will begin to break down in some cases. So when Biden starts a new war, it won't be warmongering fucking pig Joe Biden decides to kill a bunch of orphans. It'll be he's restoring order. America's role in the world is bigger now. Trump was an isolationist. He withdrew us on the national stage. Biden knows how to really get it to those fucking tin horners. Yeah, just ignore all the dead kids. You're not going to see a death counter on CNN like you saw, in times past. When COVID is still magically there, probably endemic. Oh, well, Trump is the reason for this. If only one nation's leader had locked things down more, despite the fact that Beijing Biden called him a xenophobe in the first place for doing so even half-assedly, if only he had decided to usurp the Constitution and pass a national lockdown for the rest of time, Grandma would still be alive. The economy. If Beijing Biden tanks the economy, because business and consumer confidence will plummet, there's a reason why there are fucking mile-long lines in Texas right now for food. People are stocking up for the depression, basically. He causes a recession. He causes a depression. 4-6 week national lockdown or whatever. Lower confidence. Higher taxes. If he fucks the economy, the Trump economy finally kicked in. This is due to Trump's deregulation. You know that they will. They'll give him a pass on goddamn everything if he gets rigged in there. Even if you got proof positive, like let's say years from now you say Biden's in there and like, oh, by the way, yeah, the voting machines really were fraudulent. Oh, yeah, that doesn't matter. It's okay. Look, Joe Biden has dog socks. He has big fluffy woofies. He has 3 German shepherds. How cute he is. He's a harmless old man. He got caught sniffing little kids? Well, that's just Joe being Joe. That's perfectly fine. 6th rape accusation against him? Oh, no, she's just a gold digger or something like that. They'll do that for him. They did it with Obama. They did it to some extent with Bush. Until after Katrina, hell, even the left-wing media, by and large, shielded the basic idea of war in the Middle East until Katrina knocked Bush out of commission. It was Katrina in 2006 that knocked him out. It wasn't the invasion of Iraq 3 years earlier. Certainly wasn't the invasion of Afghanistan. CNN bent over backwards and sucked its own cock, adulating him after 9/11, gave him carte blanche to do whatever he wanted. Never once said jack shit about it. He had to go to the furthest left reaches of the internet or something to find anyone willing to criticize the fucker. It's going to be just like that all over again. That's about all. Peace out.